YouTube? Capital G here, giving you guys a quick OCG metagame breakdown, seeing how things are transpiring and shaking up in the OCG when it comes to competitive Yu-Gi-Oh, especially post the release of Rise of the Duelist. Keep in mind, just because some places are still under quarantine because of coronavirus doesn't mean there aren't any tournaments going on in the OCG. The OCG, of course, is more than just Japan. You got Singapore, Taiwan, also Korea. Next year, I mean, even China could be knee-deep in Yu-Gi-Oh, and that would probably cause their tournament numbers overall to explode. But for right now, I just kind of want to look at what Rise of the Duelist is doing to the, competitive meta in the OCG. Now, these deck lists are from not that long ago. This is all taken from April 18th through April 19th, so just like a couple weekends ago. And it is interesting to see that Rise of the Duelist has already had an impact on their meta. When you look at Orcas and Dragma, or at least a Dragma variant, both of them leading the way with 12%. Very respectable, especially considering Dragma is brand new out of Rise of the Duelist. It looks like it has immediately made an impact. And yes, I'm not going to take a victory lap, but I'll take at least like a quarter of a lap or something like that. You guys know where I stood when I talked about Dragma. I thought it was going to be competitive. Some people said, no, Kappa G, you don't know what you're talking about. This deck is trash. Other Yu-Gi Supers said it's trash, so it's trash and you're wrong. Well, so far, so good. It definitely looks like it's at least it has potential to be competitive. And all I was trying to say was I thought it would be at least a top 5 deck. It's designed very similarly to Necroz. I thought it had all the factors to be a competitive deck. We'll talk about Dragma a little more in a hot second. Now, after that, you have Dorado, which I love that name. I love how the OCG players call it Dorado. That would, of course, be Eldlick. We have Adamanticators. We have Salamangreat, which are just always, I guess, a stable pick when it comes to competitive Yu-Gi-Oh, no matter if it's TCG or OCG. We've got Sky Strikers, Zephyra, or it's just kind of like a Pendulum strategy. And then we have 3-star Synchron, which that is Cherubini Turbo. I've looked at the build. The entire point of that deck is just to get the Cherubini as quickly as possible. You guys will see that on the screen in a moment. Let's go ahead and look at the Orcas builds and see what's going on with Orcas. Now, in my opinion, Orcas isn't a deck that really, it doesn't strike the same fear of God in the hearts of players as it used to, but it still is a deck that's very strong. Even without things like Bardiche and Nightmare Mermaid, it really comes down to the support that the deck got in Eternity Code. You guys know I said Mech Knight Girsu Orcas, that card is just broken. 1-card Orcas combo, and basically if you hit that card, you're in pretty good shape. In the OCG, it's even better because they still have Harpour at 1. Now, Konami did put, they put Galatea to 1 in the OCG, but that was irrelevant. You only need 1 Galatea anyways. You can summon her back from the graveyard, and most of the time, you're only going to be using 1 Galatea throughout the process of the duel. Not to mention, you can technically put her back in your extra deck. The point is, Galatea to 1 didn't really do anything. Another thing that's keeping Orcas afloat is the fact that they can run the Dragon or the Red Eyes Dragoon engine. That makes them very strong. We all know Red Eyes Dragoon is like busted, and Konami putting all the pieces to 1 in that engine did nothing. I said that when they did it. That wasn't going to stop people from playing the deck or from playing the engine, and Orcas especially. Orcas constantly gets locked into the Dark Attribute during the process of its combo, but guess what? Red Eyes Dragoon is Dark Attribute, and Verde Anaconda is Dark Attribute as well. So, like, they don't even care if they're locked under Dark. They're still going to be able to summon Red Eyes Dragoon, and that card is absolutely nuts. One of the things I found fascinating is the OCG players aren't even playing Crescendo anymore. What world are we in where we don't even need to play Crescendo? The only trap card they're willing to main deck right now, it seems to be Impermanence. And don't get me wrong, Impermanence is probably like the best trap in Yu-Gi-Oh because it's good going first or second. But come on, you got a searchable Infernity Barrier that banishes and has a built-in Rhoda, and that's not even good enough for you to main deck? Like, this is absolutely madness. Now, when it comes to Dragma, and you can go back and look at my videos, I did say I expected it to be a meta deck, but this is not what I expected, and definitely not what I had hoped for. People have thrown out the pure Dragma builds. They're like, Cap, that is not the way, bro. You need to keep up. The new spice is Dragma Invoked, and I mean, I gotta admit, from a fundamental standpoint, it does make sense. I did predict that Dragma was going to be a blind go second. second deck, and we know that Invoked has had a lot of success going blind seconds. I mean, Invoked really doesn't have a lot of special summons outside of the the Invoked extra deck monsters themselves, and that's where Dragma can kind of pick up the steam. Dragma don't really need their normal summon that much, and Invoke don't really have a ton of special summons, so it's like when you throw them together, they kind of work in unison. You go second, you wait for your opponent to throw an extra deck monster on field, and then you kind of capitalize off of that. Alistair the Invoker is probably the best normal summon in all of Yu-Gi-Oh, so that kind of fits the niche perfectly for the Dragma archetype. And with Dragma, all your cards they can special summon themselves from your hand. Your Stratos, Ecclesia, if your opponent has an extra deck monster, throw her down, get yourself a search. Although on the other side, if you are forced to go first, you can easily drop a one card Makaba. You can easily search with Ecclesia. The Rhoda for the archetype, which I knew that card was just nuts the second I saw it. Not only is it a Rhoda, but then it also pops a card on your opponent's side of the field. When you send Nethys to the graveyard, it was pretty obvious that that was going to be strong. Now, it is interesting to see some of the builds are designed to go second, as I thought they would be. You see like Galaxy Cyclone, or excuse me, Cosmic Cyclone at 3 in the build, and then you also see 3 tactical talents. So if your opponent has any negation effects that they use on you or they hand trap you, you can fire back the three tactical talents, draw some cards, or just take their monsters, etc. But then you also see some builds that are, more tailored to go first, running things like Solemn Judgment in the main deck. So I guess you can kind of tackle Dragma in 2 different ways, but it does look like all the builds so far that are having success are kind of using the Invoked engine, and that's just something that Shadows do in Yu-Gi-Oh right now. Heck, I was even running Invoked in my generator builds because of all the synergies with Makaba being a level 9 and the generators a level 9, and just the really solid plays between Horror and having like Makaba on the field. It's so powerful. Don't be surprised if Alistair the Invoker ends up getting hit on the FNL list by the end of the year. Anyways, when you look at the Eldlik builds, or I'm just gonna call it El Dorado for now on because I like that name so much more. When you look at the El Dorado deck, I am in heaven. I love this deck, man. I mean, granted, I haven't played it, but just looking at it from an aesthetic standpoint and seeing half the damn deck be purple, as an Altergeist player, there's nothing more beautiful than when half your deck is just trap cards. This is absolutely awesome, and even more so, and I know people are gonna hate me for saying this, but seeing triple skill drain and triple Solemn Judgment in the main deck, this is euphoria. Just take my money. My goodness, you guys don't even know how much money I would pay to have skill drain at 3 in the TCG. I love these triple skill drain decks. There's always that one triple skill drain deck that like pops up in the OCG and is like wildly successful, and we never get it. We never get to run it like that in the TCG. It reminds me of my days running like TG Stun back during the Zexal era, and I'd have like a Beast King Barbaros on the field against Wind-Up or Insector players, and I'd just flip over skill drain and laugh at them. Oh man, those were some good old days. But yeah, when you look at Eldlik, it seems to be pretty much the new control deck. Like, I mean, maybe from a like price standpoint, it might not be the most attractive thing, because I know that Golden Lordy's what, like $90, but basically I think that this is the deck that a lot of the control players are going to move towards. If you're a true Draco player, if you're someone who plays Guru or Altergeist, if you really want to be playing the best control deck in the game, this is gonna be your sauce. And it's interesting to see the second build is actually main decking Lava Golem, so I guess we have no problems going second, because if your opponent builds a really big board, we're just gonna Lava Golem them, and then that board is gonna be broken. Decks like Adamanticators, these combo Pendulum decks, that they really don't have a resistance to this card. Also, it's my understanding that with the Elder trap cards, since they are technically trap cards on the field, you can still use Gamma even when you have them in the monster zone, and that's really cool. But you do realize, or you do see that all the builds pretty much are running triple skill drain, triple solemn, so we not letting our opponent play no Yu-Gi-Oh. if you thought monster effects were going to be part of Yu-Gi-Oh, like, nah. Whenever you have triple skill drain in a deck, it's basically like going back 5 eras. We're making the game go back to the DM era. We're playing caveman Yu-Gi-Oh. We're not using monster effects because those are uncool. We also had a Wind Witch Invoke sighting, and that is really interesting. I mean, we haven't seen that since probably, God, man, maybe like the Art V days. I thought that was really cool, but really when you think about it, we know Invoked has come back in a very, very strong way, especially in Master Rule 5, and now, I mean, it's still quite like possible to win a duel just opening Ice Bell. If you Ice Bell your opponent, or if you open with Ice Bell and you get your one card Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon, you're going to be in good shape. It's immune to things like Lightning Storm, and also it just has negation. It's a huge monster. A lot of decks might not even be able to honestly kill it. We see Zodiac doing well as well. This is something that I fully expected. I think Zodiac is a very strong deck. I think Zodiac is a deck that doesn't need a lot of resources to get going. I feel like Pot of Avarice going to 3 was probably the biggest godsend that could happen to decks like Zodiac and Sky Striker. Decks like that, decks that can basically use it turn 1. I've seen so many times where Zodiac players will be able to activate an Extravagance or not an Extravagance, but an Avarice in the first turn, and that doesn't even include potentially hand traps, putting those back into their deck. Now, as I said earlier, Konami putting the Dragoon combo pieces all at 1 did basically nothing, because you're even seeing Zodiac players also using the Red Eyes Dragoon engine. And I'm not gonna lie, maybe if they open with like Dragoon plus a Zodiac Trident, that's actually pretty darn legitimate, and that's not something that I would want to duel against. I do think it's interesting running the Solemn Strikes instead of Solemn Warnings, but that's something I'd have to test myself. We got Pendulums, and it's a Zephyr build, which, I mean, just look, honestly, when it comes to Pendulums, just look at the extra deck. If you want to know what the win condition is, just look at the extra deck and count all the negation cards. We know that this deck probably wants to end on a board of like, I don't know, Appaloosa with like Borreload Savage Dragon, and then like one other negation card as Triff about Pendulums if you want to know more about Pendulums. And then really interesting, outside of like the Cherubini deck, we saw Megaliths getting in on the action. And this was interesting because this isn't even a deck that uses Block Dragon. Now, you guys know I have shown crazy Megalith plays, everything from the Triff Jokingly Lock, which lets you FTK your opponent by using Cowboy unlimitedly. And I've seen a lot of plays with this deck, but I've never seen a build that doesn't use Block Dragon, because the entire Megalith archetype is Earth attribute. They also can run Emancipators, which are Earth. I really thought that they would always have to use Block Dragon, and I guess if Block Dragon gets banned, it's not even going to matter, because this build is using a Herald engine. They're running Diviner of the Heralds to, I guess, be a normal summon. It allows you to drop Herald of the Arclight in the graveyard, get a Surge, and then also your Diviner of Heralds can be used as ritual fodder. So this is a really interesting build. Now, I would like to see how this deck kind of operates, what its core combo is, etc., etc. But I think that that's kind of fascinating as well. Megaliths, not a deck to sleep on. But whatever you guys think of this little sample size that we got of the OCG, you leave that in the comment section below, and tell me what you guys think. Is this a diverse meta that you would be interested in playing in? I think it's going to be really interesting when we do get Rise of the Duelists in the TCG and things kind of open up. I'm getting very excited. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. As always, subscribe if you have not already, and turn on that notification bell for daily videos.